Hi, my name is James Theris. I'm the owner of Level 10 Martial Arts College in Palm Harbor, Florida. And we also have a location in Indianapolis, Indiana that has been open for 23 years now. Just moved here to Palm Harbor to open up our Florida location in July of 2017. And I wanted to talk to you for a few moments because we've been in this area now for about 6 months, and we've had some fantastic families come through. But I wanted to talk to you about the possibility that if you or your child have been training someplace else in the past, maybe you're currently training someplace else, I just wanted to ask you a very straightforward question. And I mean this in with the utmost respect, but I wanted to be very straight and direct and honest about what I'm going to talk about today. And that is this: are you being ripped off? You see, we've had a lot of students that have come from other programs, some in Florida, some from other states, and I've been doing this a very long time now, for 40 plus years. And one of the things that I've noticed in the martial arts over the past 20, 25, maybe 30 years is a general slow erosion of the quality in martial arts. I can remember when I first started with my instructor back in the very early 80s. We had pictures of students with very low ranks, orange belts, blue belts, green belts, purple belts, brown belts, and they were showing pictures of their kicks. Some of them front snap kicks, some of them side kicks, and these, virtually every single one of them, the techniques were very, very high quality, almost flawless in some cases, with the with the technique itself, I guess. And there were pictures of these big, huge, I don't know what they're called, where there's a lot of pictures in it like this of various students, 20 to 30 to 40, 50 different pictures, and again, almost all of them. There were always a couple that the adults started a little bit later. Their bodies weren't able to adapt as quickly as some of the kids, but almost every one of those pictures in those frames were very, very high quality. And I've seen pictures of very similar types of pictures where there's a collage, I guess is the word I'm looking for, of a bunch of different students showing techniques, and it's kind of gone the opposite way, where the students' techniques, I can tell what they're trying to do, but it's very incorrect. And we're talking kids, teens, and adults alike, with only one or two of them being correct. And that's a good indicator of where the quality of martial arts instruction has gone over the past, as I said, 20 to 30 years. So what I've noticed here at our school is that some of the students that have come in, they, for the most part, have been intermediate level students, blue belts, green belts, purple belts, equivalent. And without too much exception, the majority of the students who come in with this rank, they're very insistent on, keeping that rank. But by and large, I have noticed that the students that come in are lacking in so many different things. And so I have to ask the question to them: have they been ripped off by one of these other programs that they were part of? So many times these guys come in and they have a lot of this rank, but they don't have any skill to represent the rank. And I was having a conversation with my class last night. There was one student in my class who had come from a different program, and the mother was looking to get, in her words, she was looking to get her daughter involved in a real martial arts program. Now, we don't teach martial arts. I don't teach very exciting backflips and what we call extreme martial arts, where they're going to learn how to jump and flip and kick, split in the air and kick 2 times and then land on the floor and do all these kind of crazy barrel rolls and things and maneuvers that are part of what's called extreme martial arts. And by the way, that stuff is extremely impressive. I'm not knocking it at all. That's just not what we do. What we do at our school, Level 10 Martial Arts College, is teach very, very, very high quality traditional basic martial arts. And my students call me master. I've been training for a long time, but really, if there's anything that I'm a master of, that's what it is. I'm a master of basic things, doing very, very simple things very, very, very well, and making sure that my students have this solid foundation built that if they would like to learn some of these more higher level things, I will bring in instructors who I have a lot of friends in the martial arts industry that I will bring in that can do. I'm almost 50 years old, and so you're not going to catch me doing flips, back flips, and these crazy martial arts maneuvers. It's just not what my skill set. My skill set is teaching very, very good, strong, quality basics. And anybody that knows me in the martial arts world, they will tell you that that's what I'm known for, is very good, solid basics. I remember my master, when I finally started to understand the basics, that he said, and I will try to use my best Korean dialect and impression here. And he said, Teres has very strong basics. That's what he told the entire gymnasium of students we were training with during one of our summer camp training outings, and that really warmed my heart, because I knew, and he knew, that I wasn't going to be one of these guys that could do all this very high level, fly over 18 people and break through a stack of boards this thick and all these kind of things. But what I could do is perform basics very well. And I didn't realize that that's what I was getting good at. And I would get compliments from people. And I remember at the same event, it might have been a different year, one of the other students coming up, and he was a junior ranking student. I think I might have been a second or third degree black belt at the time. And he said something to the effect of, hey, James, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. What he said, how come your forms are so darn good? And I thought, wow, my forms are good. I didn't know that they were that good. And he, then went on to, to lavish me with all this praise about how great my techniques were. And I didn't think that I was doing anything special. But later, as I continued my training and started to see this erosion take place, I started realizing why he was so impressed with what I was doing. Because I wasn't doing very, very high, like high-flying, exciting things, but I was doing very simple things to the very best of my ability, meaning that I was putting forth sincere effort to try to make every technique as clean as possible, and to put as much power and spirit and attitude in everything that I was doing as possible. And that's what impressed him the most. That's what made my grandmaster so proud of what I was doing, and made him make that comment about my basics. And that's what's really, I see, lacking in the martial arts world these days. Now, I am not speaking about schools that teach jiu-jitsu. I have no knowledge of that art, the grappling arts and things. So, or MMA schools, they probably have very good high quality within their arts. I'm speaking more of arts like karate and lots of different styles of it, and taekwondo and kung fu, the stand-up arts, and the traditional sides of things, like what we teach here at Level 10 Martial Arts College. And what I've seen a lot of is that a lot of teachers are teaching without teaching. Bruce Lee had a very famous quote from his movie Enter the Dragon, and he was on this big boat, and there was this kind of bully martial artist walking around challenging everybody on the boat, and he tried to challenge Bruce Lee, and he said, Bruce Lee kind of looked at him sideways and says, "Don't waste my time," or something like that. And this guy says, "What's your style?" And Bruce Lee looks at the guy and he says, "My style? You can call it the art of fighting without fighting." And then, of course, he said, "Show me." And so then Bruce Lee, lures him out and says, "Okay, how about we go over on that island? We need more room." And without realizing that he was demonstrating his art of fighting without fighting to this guy, and the guy says, "Okay, fine, let's get on this boat and go over to this island." And Bruce Lee lets this guy get into the boat, and then lets him drift out and holds him to the boat so he doesn't float away by this rope, and gives the rope to the other people on the ship. And then he has clearly demonstrated the art of fighting without fighting to this guy by tricking him into getting onto this boat and leaving him alone until they get to the island. And then this guy quickly gets beaten by one of the other characters, and he's kind of out of the picture very quickly. So what I'm seeing in the martial arts, though, is really it's a lot of teaching without really teaching. So the teachers in many martial arts programs these days are doing more of an entertaining type of teaching, where they're making sure the kids are having fun. They're making sure that the parents are seeing the kids smile, and as long as the children are smiling and having a good time, the parents will continue to fork out that tuition money every month. And as long as they're happy and they're happy, they don't realize that at the end of the day, I like to call it like this, and I have heard this somewhere long ago, but I continue to use it, and that is that these students at the end of the day they get up to the higher ranks and maybe even black belt ranks, and they've got a firm grasp on an empty sack. So yes, they've been entertained, they've been given the belts, white belt, yellow belt, orange belt, blue belt, green belt, purple belt, brown belt, blah, 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 all the way to black belt. And if any of those students, I won't say any, but a lot of these students, if some of these students get tested by a bully at school or in the neighborhood, I feel so bad for them, because they are not going to have the ability to even stand up for themselves. They won't have the ability to throw a technique that has any stopping power behind it. And I'm certainly not advocating they do that at the beginning, because they've got to learn how to develop the ability to have confidence in themselves, which is probably going to deter at least 50 to 60% of the bullies that might otherwise target them. So that's number one, is giving the student that kind of confidence to stand up for themselves. And I'm telling you, that kind of confidence does not come from what we used to call belt factories in my day. Now they've been retermed as McDojos, where you come in, they hurry up and rush you through the process and test you and give you a new rank and hurry and do it again, because they're charging test fees, which means that's more income from the school. And the student is getting this false sense of confidence in themselves, and the parents getting a false sense of what their children are truly learning and capable of. And unfortunately, they don't realize it until they come to a school like ours, and they can compare the quality of their child, who might be a blue belt or a green belt, versus one of our white or yellow belts who've been taught correctly from the beginning. It's a shame to see it happen, but I've seen it happen so many times. And what I've come to learn is that if a student comes from another program into our program, it's just best that if they take their old rank off and empty their mind, empty their cup of what they were taught before, and learn to absorb what we do. Those who are willing to do that always end up better off in the end. The ones who insist on wearing that rank because they earned it, they're the ones that really never progress. They'll go along for a little while in a program, and then they'll realize that they're way out of their element. This is too much of a shock to their system to realize that they've spent a year or two or three, in one case 3 years or 4 years even, in a program, and they don't even have the most basic things learned. They don't have the ability to make eye contact. They don't have any confidence in themselves. When they're told to yell when they kick, they're too afraid to yell. So if you're wearing a blue belt and you're afraid to throw a kick with any power and yell with it, then in my opinion, that student's not really a blue belt. They've been ripped off by their instructor. So maybe you know somebody like this, and this is the unfortunate thing, is the opinion of traditional martial arts has gone way down over the course of those 20 to 30 years, and that's exactly the reason, because at the end of the day, the student really has nothing to show for what this thing represents. See, these things around our waist, the belts, should be an accurate representation of what we know and what we can do as martial artists. Same way as if you see a person in a blue uniform with a hat and a silver badge, we're talking about a police officer, you should be able to expect a few things from that police officer. You should be able to expect that police officer knows how to handle a firearm and knows how to shoot it, knows how to use a pair of handcuffs properly, knows enough self-defense techniques and how to use their equipment that they're equipped with to be able to take down an assailant that's maybe sometimes 2 times or 3 times their size or stronger than them, or whatever the situation may be. So if I go to a police officer for help, I should be able to trust in that officer to at least have some ability to protect me. Now, if I go to that police officer and they can't, then in my opinion, they're not much of a police officer. And so I'm not really talking about police officers here. I'm using this as an example to talk about the philosophy of handing rank out before it's really earned or deserved. You see, one of the things that's really happened in our society over the course, again, since my childhood, it's gotten easier and easier and easier. The standards have been brought way down so that just anybody can do it. And with that, the sense of achievement and pride and the overall confidence has kind of gone out the window. And that's one of the reasons why we've ended up with this entitlement mentality society that we live in. Everybody wins, and that's not always the case. In the real world, if a bully picks a fight with somebody, he's probably going to be targeting somebody who has less confidence in themselves. And when that fight ensues, whether that child wants to be in the fight or not, and the bully forces that fight, and I've been the victim of that, where I didn't want to fight growing up, and I was forced to either defend myself or get my behind handed to me, I learned through my martial arts training that at those times, that's when I had to stand tall. And whether I won or lose, I always earned the respect of that person, and the bullying stopped. Even if I lost the fight to them, because they saw that I wasn't as easy a target as they originally had intended, and that makes a huge difference. So this is the difference between today and yesteryear, is that kids are being sheltered from handling, criticism or handling bullies, and they're being told to just go tell somebody, and that only gets them into more trouble later on. So we've got to learn how to have confidence in ourselves and learn how to stand up for ourselves when the time is right and when it's called for. So we have to be able to flip that switch, just like it is for parents. You can't be friends with your kids and be totally at their whim and do exactly what they want to do all the time, and then never correct them, never reprimand them, never teach them the difference between right and wrong, and continually offer warning after warning after warning. Sometimes you've got to do what's necessary as a parent and put some discipline in that child's life, and whatever discipline works for you, I'm fine with. But there's got to be some kind of repercussion when a child has overstepped their boundaries. Now, it's the same in martial arts, and that's not being done. When the child is not ready for testing and not ready for promoting, they're being tested and promoted anyway, all in the sake of holding on to a student so that instructor can have bragging rights that they've got this massive school with 400 active training students, but the majority of the students in that school don't, maybe, I don't know. There's some places it may be different, but a lot of times I've seen it, they don't have the quality of skill that I believe is necessary to wear that rank, and especially at this level, at the black belt. They really should have some skills developed, and by the time they reach their black belt level, they should have a very good understanding of the basics in martial arts. And so that's what I call teaching without really teaching. And it's unfortunate, because a lot of the instructors in the martial arts today they're afraid to be honest, because it could lead to a quit. And a student that quits means that's less income for that martial arts school. Now listen, at Level 10 Martial Arts College, that's the whole idea. Level 10 is an attitude of higher standards, and that's our goal, is to teach very, very high quality martial arts, but very traditional martial arts. I'm not here to teach, as I said, all these crazy skills and tricks and things like that. I have friends in the business that can do those things that we bring in for students that want to take it to that extra level, and so we'll have students that can do those things. But that's not the reason we do it, and that's not what I'm going to teach my students. I'm going to teach them very, very good quality, basic things. And when they go to another school, which sometimes my students will move, sometimes they quit because they get bored with doing basic things, or whatever it is that we're doing. Maybe they get bored with it and decide they want to try a different martial art altogether, whatever. By and large, what often happens is I'll follow these students online. I stay friends with my students, whether they quit or not. I'm still there. They still are part of my family, and they always will be part of my family, and that's how I view it. So I'll watch them, and oftentimes these students that leave my school will go to another school, and they will become the leaders in that school in a very, very short period of time, and many of them will move into instructor positions because it's very obvious that they've been taught properly from day one. They've been given a lot of things that the other programs out there are not making sure to teach. All right, so a lot of these instructors are afraid to be honest with the parents about what their children really need and what they can really do, and they will. And if the parent gives any kind of indication that they're unhappy because their child might have to wait, and I've had those as well. I've had parents say, "Oh my goodness, Master Theros, if my child doesn't promote a second time here, because I'll fail students. I will hold them back. They will not promote if they're not ready." And that's something that the students can always trust in. When they get a rank from me, it's genuine, it's honest, they have earned it. And occasionally I'll have parents that they have a much higher expectation of what they think their child should be able to do than I do in the beginning. But oftentimes that gets reversed, and then the parent will be coming to me and say, "Master Theros, if my child doesn't promote for a second or third time, they'll be crushed." And that's an attempt at manipulating me into saying, "Okay, fine, we'll make sure we promote them this time to keep them happy and keep you happy so we can keep collecting tuition from you." And I learned a long time ago not to do that. In the very beginning, I was like that. And that's how I know that these things are happening, because I was too afraid to be honest. And that's what parents are paying me for. They're paying me for results. And part of that is paying me for my honest assessment of their child. And that's just not being done as often as it should be anymore. So that's something that's what Level 10 is. It's an attitude of higher standards. And that's my mission, is to bring that professionalism and bring that quality back into the martial arts. So Students at other schools, I've noticed, again, I go out, I'm in the school systems a lot. And so I will go in and do presentations for my students in their classrooms, or for an entire school, like we did for the Great American Teach-In back in November. And I always ask, how many of you have trained in martial arts before? How many of you are still training in martial arts? And you would be surprised at the things that the students that raised their hands that said they used to train in martial arts, and in fact the ones that say they're still training in martial arts, the things that they're not being taught and they don't know. Simple things like being respectful and answering your instructor with a yes sir, which is part of a fabric of our society. Is children should respect their elders, and that's something that we still teach here. So and it's not something that's given to the adults and not given back to the kids. The students call me sir, but I also call the students sir and ma'am. Even ones that are 10 years old, 9 years old, I will use the word sir and ma'am to them just as much as they do it to me. So this is a reciprocal thing that should be taught, and it's not being taught for some reason in many programs today. And I see it with people that come in. I expect to see that want to be one of the first things. They come in and they bow and they recognize that I'm a black belt instructor, and I'm going to be their instructor, and I should kind of see, how are you today, sir? It's nice to meet you. I trained at so-and-so school, and here's what we learned. A lot of times I ask them who their instructor was or is. They don't know their instructor's last name. They don't know what art they were training in. What style of martial art did you train in? What was the name of your form? What level was that from? What's your belt rank level? The kids don't know this. The parents don't know this. When I was 13 years old, 14 years old, I knew exactly all of those things, and it wasn't because I was a genius. I'm not bragging here. It's because my instructor made sure that we knew how everything fit together. We knew what a white belt was, what the grade of the belt was. See, a white belt in martial arts, in a Korean or Japanese martial arts, is called a 10th GUP or a 10th Q, which means grade below black belt. And then the yellow belt is usually the next one. That will be a 9th grade or 9th Q, and 8th and 7th, 6th, and then when you get to first GUP or first grade, first Q, then you go to first Dan or first degree, that's your black belt levels. Usually there'll be a probationary black belt, and then there will be a first degree, second degree, third degree. And the students these days don't know this stuff anymore. So they don't realize that this is very important for parents to know. If your child's training in one program and they switch to another program that's similar, it's a stand-up fighting art like ours. If they're going from a karate school to a taekwondo school, or a taekwondo school to a karate school, or to a kung fu school, or whatever it is they're doing, the instructor has to have a way to find out where that student fits in rank-wise. All right, so the belt colors might be different. It might be that white, yellow, and orange are the same in the majority of schools, but then after that, green is next. And in another school, the next belt after the orange belt would be purple belt. And in still another school, it might be a blue belt. And in another school, it could be a brown belt right after that. And so that's where we get confused. But each one of those ranks has a grade associated with it. And there typically are 10 official ranks on the way to black belt. And that's 10th grade, 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And then they go through another 10, which are your degrees of black belt, which is kind of like earning a college degree. First degree is like a bachelor's degree, second is an associate's degree, third degree is whatever the next one is, and so on and so forth. Like a master's would be like a PhD, those types of things. And this is not being taught to the students. And so when they move to another school, that's one of the ways that I, as an instructor, can tell how long the student's been training. And so I'll ask them, okay, how many times have you tested? You tested 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Okay, that puts you in our first intermediate level. Show me what you can do. Let me see a basic front snap kick. And then look at me like, what's a front snap kick? Show me a roundhouse kick. And they don't know what a roundhouse kick is. And then when they finally understand that the terminology might be different in the other school, and this is what we call a roundhouse kick, the student at the intermediate level has no ability to pivot their bottom foot, the supporting foot, to get their hip into it so that their knee becomes parallel to allow them to kick in this fashion instead of up here. And they're supposed to be kicking, if this is my foot, with the instep. They're kicking with the side and they're throwing their kick, and you can see that if that kick were to make impact with something, it would do no damage to what they were kicking towards. And these things are not being corrected by their instructor. And this is what prompted me to make this video today. So students aren't being taught their etiquette, and etiquette is a big part of martial arts. These students don't know how to tie their belts. They don't know how to wear their uniforms properly. They don't know that they're not supposed to wear clothing underneath their uniforms. Imagine if you were, in the military and you walked in your military uniform and you had a pair of sweatpants underneath the shirt and things like this that was not regulation, and they were just hanging out, and you got a Disney Mickey Mouse couple of ears sticking up here. That would be like heresy to a military person. But how many instructors are allowing? Just go on and look at martial arts schools that allow their students to wear this uniform, and they've got a collared shirt underneath it, a polo shirt or something like that, sticking out like that. My goodness, that's not uniform code, and that's those. If they're overlooking those little things like that, like the student's belt being tied incorrectly, and the uniform being worn like that, and rolled up here, and it's got stains on it, and it's all wrinkled, and well, that's going to show through in their entire program. I promise you. Everything will be like that. So remember, we as a martial arts school in this area, we're not the cheapest school. You can find lots of schools cheaper than us, but understand that the things that our grandparents told us, or our parents told us, where you get what you pay for, that applies to martial arts training just the same. All right. Here's what you pay for when you pay for a martial arts education. And let me preface this by saying, the number one thing that you don't want to skimp on when it comes to your children or yourself is their education. You can get free, and free is typically not what you're looking for, right? And what I've learned from my mentors is this: people who don't pay attention. So if you're paying a higher amount, that's why Harvard or an Ivy League school like that, Stanford, these kind of places, Princeton, they're going to charge a much higher tuition than the community college, because it comes with a different connotation in the student's mind, and it also comes when that diploma comes to them and it says Harvard or Stanford on it, it's going to carry more weight than Tampa University. No offense to Tampa University, I'm sure it's a great school, but compare a degree from Tampa University to Harvard University. There's no comparison. It's the same thing in martial arts. And so you're going to get what you pay for in the quality of everything you look for. So usually when they charge less, there's a reason they charge less for it. Okay? So here's some of those things. The facility location. I made sure that I spent 6 months of time figuring out where in the Florida area we were going to move, and more importantly, which location, which plaza, which area was going to house our school. And I had the opportunity to go to a couple of other lower quality plazas where you could, the signs were very cheaply made, or they have holes in the signs, and there's things that the landlord's not keeping up on the property. The weeds are overgrown everywhere. There are closed up offices in there and businesses in there, and then there's the karate school, kind of by itself. And I know this because I used to have my school in plazas like that. When we came to Florida, we decided we wanted to make sure that everything matched who we are and what our name says. Level 10, an attitude of higher standards. We chose the very best plaza that we could find, and that meant it was more expensive for us to pay rent here. I could have moved across the street in one of those other plazas down the road and gotten charged about $2,000 per month less for my monthly rent, which means that I could charge less for my lessons as well. But then, how many people care about, I don't know about you if you're watching this, but I'll tell you, I care about where I find myself shopping at. I'm not what you would call a Walmart shopper. That's not, I shop at Walmart, but I don't shop, that's not my first choice. If I have the opportunity, I'm going to go to a little bit higher end. I'm not the kind of person that eats at fast food restaurants. It's cheap, it's fast, it's easy. I prefer places like Longhorn. I prefer places like Outback Steakhouse. I prefer Ruth Chris Steakhouse. I don't drive, and no offense to anybody that drives a smart car or a Prius or things like that, and cheaper cars that get better gas mileage. I drive a Mercedes-Benz. For me, I want the best quality of whatever I can get. When I buy clothing, I buy top quality clothing, which means I'm not going to find that kind of clothing at a Walmart. I'm going to find that at a Neiman Marcus. I'm going to find that at a Nordstrom's. I'm going to find that at some higher quality store. And yes, it's going to be more expensive, but I have found that those products last longer and they look nicer than what I would buy at Walmart or Target, for instance. And again, it's not that I don't shop at those places. I certainly do. If I need something that's it's not as important to me on the quality side, or it's a convenience factor, I will definitely stop into Walmart and buy groceries or buy knickknacks for the school or for the home, whatever. But that's not my mentality. I'm not looking for bargains everywhere. I'm willing to pay top dollar for top quality. And that's what we do here at Level 10. We are a top quality martial arts school from A to Z. And so some students will come in and they try us out because we're doing a special on our 6-week program, and it's very reasonable. And of course, we want everybody to try it out so that they can sample it and see, wow, this is for $69 or whatever they paid for the 6-week program, because occasionally we'll offer specials on this and they'll get it for even more reduced rate. And then when they come and they see the quality, we'll show them what it costs for tuition. They're like, oh my goodness, that's way out of my price range. But then I see a lot of things that they're doing in their personal lives that are taking money and putting it into other things that if they were to take the money that they're putting into these things and put it into their education or their child's education, it may cause a little bit of strain financially in the beginning, but it's going to be some of the best money they've ever spent in their entire lives, especially from a parenting perspective. Because kids in my program, they're the ones that go on to be members of student council in their schools. They become leaders in everything that they do. They choose better friends to hang out with. They make better grades. They're not perfect. They still slide and slip back. I've got a conference this evening with a young man who's a very good model student here, but he's made some bad choices at school, and I'm going to sit down and talk to him about how our martial arts program should be used when he's at school as well. The level of respect to his teacher should be the same level of respect he shows to me or any of our other instructors here. And when I can get him to understand that his teacher is going to be thanking us for that, because all of a sudden his teacher is going to get a better behaved student at school, his parents are going to appreciate that, because instead of getting these I don't know what the colors are, yellow and red and orange and all these kind of things, instead of getting the bad check mark, they're going to get the green plus mark or whatever it is, and it's going to result in the parents being able to praise their child instead of go in for another parent-teacher conference or with the principal about detention or expulsion or things like this, right? Okay, so this is what you pay for in a martial arts program. You pay for the facility, the location. You also pay for the facility inside. How does it look? How does it smell? We don't use carpet in our school because carpet retains sweat, which retains smells and stinks like you can't believe. You go into a lot of schools and it smells like feet the moment you open the door. And they're going to charge you less because it's cheaper to take care of the carpet. And then you're going to see things like duct tape on the carpet to cover up holes and things. And there are going to be coffee stains maybe in the carpet. You're going to see all kinds of crazy things. You're going to see the paint has been deteriorated on the wall and they're not fixing it. You're going to see that the mats look very old and shoddy or ratty in some of these places. Now, some places they've done a very good job of professionalism, and you're going to see that as well. But be on the lookout for these things. In our school, we have beautiful gray tiled floors. We have beautifully painted walls that are going to be repainted every single year. We have the best mats that you can buy on the market, and the most expensive mats that have our logo emblazoned on them. Our kicking bags are the top type of kicking bags you can get, again, with our school logo on them. Our sparring gear is all congruent. Everybody wears the same gear, and it has our logo on it. And it is again, it's like an academy. Just like if you were in the military, you're not going to, just because you like the Marines, you can't slap a Marine patch on your Army uniform. That's just not going to be accepted. And so that's the reason. The branding. Think about it from this perspective. You can go to Walmart or to Target or any grocery store, and you can find those little white boxes of cereal that say Rice Chex or something on the side, and you can get them for much cheaper. And then you have the brand name right next to it, which might be the Kellogg's Rice Krispies or whatever. And in many cases, they might be even similar tasting, but how many of us, I know I'm not interested in just saving the money by buying that white box, because the last thing I want to do is open that cabinet and see the cereal box, the cheap one, because that's going to affect my psyche. I'm going to feel like I'm cutting corners someplace. I'm going to feel a little bit cheap. And of course, I don't want my friends coming over and opening that and making fun of me because I've got the white box there. And again, if you're looking at this and that is you and you're doing those things, no offense to you, that's just not what I'm doing. That's just not what we are all about. We're about very, very high standards and high quality in everything that we do. All right? The smell of the facility. We make sure that we have these little air misters that go once an hour and freshen the air up. We have other air fresheners in the bathrooms, and we mop the floors daily. We mop the mats and sanitize the mats weekly. And Those are all part of why our school, when you walk in, it smells good, it looks clean, it looks nice, it's organized, it's clutter-free. The students, are they being taught proper technique? Again, that is something that I make sure that is done every class. I make sure that they're learning, everything that they're learning is being taught correctly from day one, and the students are understanding the whole concept and thought process behind why they're doing what they're doing and how it can benefit them in their training and away from the school as well. All right. Also, we teach philosophy in our training. I don't just teach how to kick and punch. I teach how those kicks and punches and learning to do them correctly is going to help a student's self-discipline improve, because that's what has to happen in order for them to be good. They've got to practice on their own without having to be told and reminded, which is what self-discipline is. And if they use that same philosophy towards their schoolwork, they're going to get better grades. If they learn how to focus on making their techniques look sharper, they're going to learn how to focus on cleaning their rooms better. They're going to learn how to focus on grooming themselves better, making sure that it's not an anything goes mentality. So proper technique, proper philosophy, their behavior. We're going to teach them proper behavior and proper etiquette and respect for themselves and for other people. Very, very big thing. Also the schedule. We've got a very robust schedule that is only going to improve as we grow and have more numbers of students come into our school. If you go to certain schools that are charging less, there might be 2 class options, that's it. And it's 5 o'clock and 6:45 or whatever, and that's the only 2 options you get. And they're going to throw all ranks and ages together. And maybe that's fine for some folks, but eventually those students might want to be separated out a little bit so that they're not continually learning with brand new beginner students coming in, and which means we have to slow the process down of teaching for the entire class to continually make it doable for brand new students. So at our school, we have an orientation class that students come into where it's strictly students within their first 2 weeks of training, and they get all of the details and basics taught to them before they join our group classes so that they don't feel like they were thrown to the wolves not knowing what they're going to be doing. And a lot of schools, that's exactly what they do. They'll put them in class without really making sure that the student's ready for it, and the student gets overwhelmed very quickly. Or the more advanced students get bored very quickly, and then parents want to pull them from the program because they're not learning anything and getting any better, and they're not being challenged. So you've got to learn to kind of find a good balance between that, and that's part of the professional experience that we provide our students. Not to mention, I think I just moved them off. I do special things like I create curriculum plans, and I create homework assignments that I send my students home with so that they can practice at home and know exactly what to do from A to Z. A lot of schools just teach you what they teach you in class, and they hope you practice at home. Again, you get what you pay for. All right, the student to teacher ratio, teacher to student ratio, sometimes can be very, very high, and sometimes it can be very, very low. In a professionally run martial arts program, which means that we're going to have to pay staff members to be on staff, that means we're going to charge a higher tuition, but that means it's going to be run in a much more professional way, because we're going to have assistants that match the number of students we have on the floor versus having 45 kids on the floor at the same time with one student or one instructor there, and he has to do this the whole class and can't really do anything about quality control because he's constantly shifting his focus from one student to the next and not explaining things properly because he's trying to make it happen very quickly. So these things are all what you get in a martial arts tuition, just like in anything else. And then finally, when we charge a lower tuition, we have to think about who's going to be attracted to lower tuition instead of higher tuition. Who's more attracted to an Ivy League school and who's more attracted to a community college? There is a difference in many cases as the mindset of the people that are attracted to one. Who's attracted to a Walmart? They have a website called peopleofwalmart.com, and if you haven't seen it, it's pretty funny. Go watch it. But do they have a peopleofneimanmarcus.com? I've never seen one. Do they have a peopleofnordstroms.com? I've not seen one of those either. Do they have a people of Saks Fifth Avenue? I haven't seen those either. And even, I don't know if they have a peopleoftarget.com, but they do have a peopleofwalmart.com. And again, I'm not dogging Walmart per se here. I'm just saying that a bargain shopper is going to be, you're probably going to see them at places, and again, no offense to anybody if you shop at these places, because I've been there and I have shopped and will return to them for certain things. Places like Big Lots, great for duct tape once in a while, right? Or maybe even Christmas decorations or things like that. Places like the Dollar Tree or Dollar General. You've got Walmart and other places like that, Beals, and There's some other ones as well. Those type of shoppers have a different mentality than the people that would shop at some of the higher end stores. And so when it comes to a martial arts school, if this tuition is very low, then we're going to be attracting a certain type of client into our program. And that's who your child is going to be associating with, that same kind of person, maybe with a little bit lower standards. And people of higher standards don't really want to spend a lot of time with people with lower standards, and vice versa, because they don't have the same philosophy. So if what I'm saying to you is offensive in any way, that might be the reason why, because I'm saying things that you're doing, and I'm not pointing a finger and blaming you for it. I'm just saying that that's not how I operate. I'm different. And so because we have differences of opinion on what's important in life and what we should be thinking about and the priorities and things, you and I are probably not going to get along very well. But if we do share a commonality and we have the same thoughts that yes, quality matters, and the kind of car we own does matter, and it's not about impressing the Joneses and all that, but it's just I like to have the prestige that goes with buying Nike versus Buddies, right? Or whatever's in a bargain bin over at DSW. I care about the name on my shirt, the name on my uniform. When we order uniforms for our martial arts school, we order the highest quality we can get. Our belts, we order high quality belts. We order high quality equipment so that it doesn't wear out very quickly. It's that kind of thought process that we put into everything that we do here. I plan every one of my classes, and we make sure that it's a written curriculum plan, so that I know if we get into a particular part of our semester, we teach in semesters like a regular school does as well. It's not open-ended. We don't do like some martial arts schools, and typically, not always, but typically, the ones who charge less for the tuition, they'll have a monthly rank test where students then, as long as they know their material, they can promote every month. And this is where the erosion process happens, is they'll promote every month just because they've memorized a pattern or memorized some self-defense techniques. Even if they're not able to perform those things at a very high level, as long as they've memorized them and they can recite a few words and answer yes sir enough times and pay a pay a test fee, then they can promote up the ranks. But they get higher and higher in rank, and it's like a house of cards at that point. Now, all that has to happen is a little gust of wind comes by, and that house of cards can come tumbling down very quickly. Now, is that the case with 100% of the students in a school like that? Absolutely not. Some places that charge less have very, very high quality students. I'm just talking about the things to be aware of when we start comparing the cost of tuition versus the cost of what you're getting. There's the perceived cost and perceived value, right? The cost versus value. So I could buy, for what I paid for my Mercedes, I could buy 5 or 10 smart cars and have an entire fleet of them, one for every day of the week. But I don't really want a smart car. It would be cheaper on my gas mileage, but you know what? It doesn't matter to me. I want a nice car, and I want a convertible. I live in Florida where I can enjoy the weather and feel the sun on my face and the wind whipping through my hair, and listening to music or listening to something like Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, or Zig Ziglar as I'm heading to work or to the beach or whatever. So that matters to me. When I sit in a restaurant, I'm looking for a restaurant that's got high quality service. They're friendly to you. They acknowledge you when you come in. You go to some restaurants and they don't even look up to see you're there. In higher quality restaurants, it's going to be, let me get the door for you. How are you today, sir? I love to be treated like that. And so that's why we try to provide that experience for our students as well. So the final thing here I'm going to talk about is that martial arts, there are different types of martial arts schools available to you and for children, for adults, whatever, in our society. And it's up to you. Just like cars, not everybody wants to own a smart car, at the same way that not everybody wants to own a Mercedes-Benz. Not everybody wants to own a Silverado 4x4 pickup truck. Not everybody wants to own a Volkswagen Beetle. Not everybody wants to own a Kia Sorento, or whatever the names that. We all have different tastes. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody wants to own a scooter. Not everybody wants a bicycle. Not everybody wants a motorcycle. And those who want motorcycles, not everybody wants a dirt bike. Not everybody wants one of those loud Harleys that you hear. They're all motorcycles, but each person has a different idea of what's important in that vehicle for them. And that's the same in martial arts. And so here's a list of types of martial arts schools that you can find. Some of them are going to be heavily based in real self-defense, reality self-defense. They don't wear uniforms. There's no bowing and yes sirs, no sirs. It's all about let's find what works and let's teach you how to break somebody's arm and do an attacker in the least with the least amount of effort and time as possible. So that's one type of martial arts school. The second one is maybe the kiddie martial arts school where everybody gets a trophy, everybody wins. And that's what I'm really talking about, is that kind of a school. They've really brought the level of professionalism down, and the level of skill and quality has come way down, all for the sake of having fun. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're looking for in a martial arts program. If you're looking just to entertain your child and make sure they have a good time and they learn a little bit of martial arts and they're happy, you're happy. If that's what you're looking for, nothing wrong with that at all. However, if you're looking for a true martial arts education for your child and you want to get something closer to what Mr. Miyagi taught to Daniel-san in the original Karate Kid movie, then you've got to avoid a place like that. Same thing, you've got to avoid one of those self-defense places if you're looking for your child to learn how to develop confidence, respect, focus, discipline, perseverance, and things like this. They can get some of that in those other schools, but they're going to be spending a lot of time on teaching them how to break an arm or how to knock an opponent out as quickly as possible. So they're not going to have time to cover etiquette and teaching them to be polite. Then you've got the martial arts schools that are tournament driven. They treat it more as a sport. Again, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're looking for, is to, instead of your child doing gymnastics, you're going to have them do martial arts and competitions. And that is a lot of fun, by the way. Those kind of schools are lots of fun. And they develop a lot of physical skills as well. And some of the mental things are taught in there as well. But that's what you've got to be looking for your child, is to, you got to know up front that they're going to be doing tournaments, and they're going to be, all the classes are going to be geared towards teaching them how to be an athlete and preparing to go to these competitions. So if that's not what you're looking for, you probably want to avoid a school like that. But if that is what you're looking for, and your child is very highly athletic and physically gifted, then by all means, that might be exactly what you're looking for. And I'm very impressed with those kind of schools. Those are some of the people from those types of schools that I will bring into our school as a guest instructor to provide some of that training for students that have an interest in that. Okay, next you've got your fitness schools. They're going to be, again, probably not big on traditional uniforms and patches and belts and things. Maybe more of yoga pants and t-shirts are the order of the day. And they're going to be focused on getting in shape. And again, nothing wrong with that. If you're looking to do something that's related to martial arts, but the goal is to lose weight and stay fit and toned and be around other people that have that kind of a lifestyle, those are fantastic as well, as long as that's what you're looking for. Then you've got your family-oriented schools, and we're a little bit of a family-oriented school. I mean, we are a very family-oriented school, but sometimes family-oriented schools are the ones where everybody trains the same ranks, trained in the same classes at the same time, and currently we've got a little bit of that going on. But because we're a new school though, but as we get to the point where we've got some intermediate and advanced students, we've got lots more teens and adults, we are going to have a separate teen and adult class just for our intermediate and advanced students. And we're going to have a separate class for our black belts, whereas in a family-oriented school that's strictly like that, they might have all the way from a 50-year-old black belt training with a 4-year-old or 3-year-old brand new beginner student in the same class. And again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, in those kind of schools, they're going to have a difficult time teaching to the black belt at the very same time as teaching to the beginner 3-year-old. They're going to have to meet in the middle, way down in here, so that everybody can enjoy it. And so there are going to be a lot of things that the instructor has to overlook to make that kind of a program work. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I love the feel of those kinds of schools. Then there's the traditional old school kind of hobby schools, where the instructor is maybe he's a police officer and he wants to teach martial arts as he learned it, but as 2 or 3 nights a week, and he's not doing it as a career, so he doesn't care about making money from it. He just wants to have enough to pay the bills and maybe a little bit to invest back into the students, to buy them a gift here and there, or send them to a tournament or something like that once in a while. But they're very old school, so they don't care how the school, they don't care, I should say they care less about where the school is located. They might care less about how the school smells and the strong odor of sweat and perspiration and blood and things like that in there. Is, to these guys, a lot of times it's a kind of a badge of honor, and they're looking to attract a very specific type of person. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then there's what our school is designed to be, is a personal development center. So we use the martial arts at Level 10 Martial Arts College the forms, which are your basic martial arts patterns, kind of like a dance routine with martial arts fighting techniques in it, which is solo training. The self-defense techniques, which is also done solo at first, but then with partners. The free sparring training, which is the sport aspect of what we do, where we learn how to use our techniques. It's kind of the closest thing you can do to getting to a fight with somebody without getting hurt. There's lots of rules involved, so it's a game of tag, and we do a lot of different styles of sparring to make it fun and interesting, so that students are learning while they're enjoying it. And then as they get higher in rank, we do allow them to maybe go a little harder, but not until they're at the black belt level. They can't do any of that kind of thing without supervision from myself or one of my instructors. And so we make sure we take it very slowly and teach these things properly, and make them understand good sportsmanship at the same time. And then, of course, we do all sorts of other types of training in our program. But it all is revolving around personal and character development. The student, their character is much more important to us than the ability to fight in the beginning. Now, when my students graduate to black belt, every one of them is going to have confidence in themselves, and they're going to have good, solid basics. Because, again, let's face it, if we get into a situation where we have to defend ourselves, all the fancy flips and back flips and things like this and tricks that you see on TV, they're not going to work. Especially today, because there's so many people that they've learned martial arts a little bit, and even if it's just from watching YouTube, which somebody can go to YouTube and watch and learn martial arts for free. And so that we're a much more educated population about fighting than we used to be back when I started. So those kind of techniques that you see in the movies and on the tournament floor, they have some benefit in real situations of self-defense, but many times those things can get you in trouble. They can get a student not disqualified, they can get them hurt, because there's not going to be a referee to step in and break it up. There are not going to be rules. You can't claim that that's not fair in the middle of a self-defense situation. The other person doesn't care if it's fair. They're going to look for a place where nobody can see what's happening. They're going to look for somebody that's an easier target, and they're going to take advantage and exploit all of the weaknesses of that person. And at that point, if that student got their blue belt or green belt, and they've been told how great they are, and they go to do that back fist to that bully, or they do a roundhouse kick and they get their leg caught and swept out from under them and get pounded into the pavement, well, now that parent is going to care about the quality of the instruction that they received from that martial arts instructor. And that's why it takes me full circle. I'm asking you, are you being ripped off? And in some cases, and in many cases, the answer is yes, you are being ripped off. So if you feel that what I've talked about today has some merit, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts, and we can certainly have a polite discussion about this, because our opinions may differ. But that's my mission with Level 10 Martial Arts College, is to provide the best traditional martial arts experience a student can possibly have, and to deliver a life-changing character and personal development program along with it, so that when a student becomes a black belt, it moves from here to here. It goes with them wherever they go, and they don't have to be wearing a uniform or a belt for somebody to know that this person has confidence and there's something different about them. I'll leave you with this. Last night, I had one of my beginner students, his big brother came in to pick him up, and he said the father was out in the car waiting for him, and I'd never met him before, so I don't let just anybody pick up students. And he came in and he said, "Excuse me, sir, I am Garrett's big brother, and I just wanted to know if it was okay, sir, if he left with me, because I didn't want, since we've never met, I didn't want to leave with him without your permission, sir," a third time. And I stopped and I said, "Garrett," and he smiled at his brother, and I said, "Is this your brother?" "Yes, sir," and he smiled and laughed about it. So I knew that this was the right person. And I asked him, I said, "Are you a martial artist?" And he said, "No, sir." "Why do you ask?" And I said, "Because the level of respect," he was probably about 15 or 16 years old. He's in high school and he's going through the naval ROTC program. And the level of respect, I said, the level of respect you've just shown to me is uncommon. I don't see it very often. Only two places I see that. That is martial arts, traditional martial arts, and the military. And he was spot on. I mean, this young man had my respect from the moment he spoke. He had my total respect. Whereas a lot of times I'll meet young students or teenagers, and they walk in, they don't understand how to respect somebody that's older than them and old enough to be their father, and especially somebody who has earned a black belt in the martial arts, which should bring a connotation to mind as to it's like when you meet the president, whether you like the president or not. If you meet the president, that's a high honor, any president. If you meet the president of a company, that's a high honor within that company, because the president has worked really hard to get to where they're at, and it brings along a certain set of values with it, or a certain amount of respect and admiration for them in many cases, maybe not in all of them. And that's what is lacking sometimes with kids in today's society, because they view themselves on the same level as an adult. A 12-year-old child, oftentimes in today's world, will view themselves as an equal to a 35 or 45 or 55-year-old person, and they will speak like they're best buddies with that person, which I think is a mistake. And also, it's with students a little bit older than that, maybe the 18 or 19, 20 years old, they will liberally drop F-bombs and S-bombs and GDs and MFs sitting at a table at a restaurant right next to me, and not think anything of it, not realizing that that's completely disrespectful to speak like that in front of somebody that is much older than you, and you don't know what their thoughts on that are. So we have to learn how to get some of this back into our society, which is why I have a book that I wrote back in 2008 or 2009 called Successful Parenting: Restoring Lost Values in a Modern World. Feel free to check it out on Amazon.com, because that's what I talk about, and how in that book I discuss how it got to where it is, and what we can do to help bring some of these old values back from my childhood, when somebody else's parent caught us doing something wrong and corrected us. It was yes ma'am, and I hope you don't tell my mother. And nowadays it's not yes ma'am, it's something much worse, and it's like, go ahead and tell my mother, she's not going to care. And they're right about it. In fact, that mother might even go over to that person's door and knock on it and say, did you tell my child to stop doing this? That's none of your business. And these are the kind of things that have helped to deteriorate the level of respect we have for one another in our society, and it's only going to get worse unless we do something about it. Everything that I just talked about for, let's see how long I've been talking, for the last, it doesn't tell me, the last 57 minutes, if you've been watching this long, that is what we need to work on. That's what Level 10 Martial Arts College is all about, is bringing those things back. So I know this is long-winded. I hope you found some value out of it. And again, I'd love to have some dialogue with you. And if you totally think I'm totally wrong, please let me know in that, and let me know why you think I'm wrong. And let's have a discussion about it. But if you do think I'm right, I'd like to know that as well. I know that there are some people out there that agree with what I'm talking about here. And I just want you to know that somebody in my position as a martial arts school owner instructor, I noticed. And that's my mission, is to make sure that we do something about it. All right. You see the books behind me? That's as important to me as anything else that we do physically. In our school, we have a saying that's leaders are readers. And in order to promote to the black belt level, I have certain books that students have to read and write a book report on it and discuss how what they read in that book applies to their martial arts training, and also how it applies in their personal daily lives. There aren't a lot of martial arts schools that do that. So that should give you an indication. Anyway, I could keep going for another 4 hours. Ask my students. All right. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to hear back from you. Have a fantastic Level 10 week.